Thanks for staying with us on Consider This. I'm Melisa, Idris, with me Sharaad, Kuttan, and on the show Nizam Mahshar from the newly established think tank Masa, or Institut Masa Depan Malaysia. Sharaad, you had a question for Nizam.
Yeah, so we talked about the guiding principles, and there are just quite a number of them, and we don't have enough time to go through them. But I want to talk about what you call enablers. You listed 8 enablers, and one of them is education and vocational education, TVET, as we like to call it. I want to ask you about that problem, because it seems to me education is always seen as a mechanism for social engineering in Malaysia, and so for decades. But it seems to have resulted in poor quality education generally. We seem to be lagging behind Vietnam and so on and so forth. Is there new thinking, or are we going to repeat the same mistakes? It's still going to be quotas, we're going to sideline meritocracy, we're going to do everything in the same way and hoping for a different result.
We have not gone to the level of details in terms of the mechanisms of each of the components of shared prosperity, but the idea behind it, especially when we talk about TVET and also education, is there seems to be a gap. While the country, when we talk about shared prosperity, it's about growth, and not only about growth, it's about escalated growth. It's a departure from a low model economy that we have right now, that has produced low-skilled workers, low-skilled income, to a kind of a high-value economy that must adapt to the technology, must adapt to best practices, must adapt to the new ecosystem. But if you cannot manage this divide, the divide from what is the level of our education right now, what is the use of our the level of knowledge in terms of the technology, the skill among our workers, so we cannot adapt to the new economy.
Okay, so the new economy is a global economy in which Malaysia has to locate itself, and I think some of the criticism has been is that this document doesn't talk enough about the external environment which Malaysia has these aspirations. We have lots of aspirations, and we are very good at planning based on aspirational talk, but the delivery has always been the problem. And some of the questions, the hard questions I want to put to you is, are we willing to take the hard decisions to create quality education? Putting meritocracy first, rewarding success, so on and so forth. Do you think we can do that?
In terms of the thinking, I totally agree with you, meaning the deliveries is the key challenge. But in shared prosperity, and what has been mentioned by the Prime Minister in his launching speech, that the aspiration is to turn the government into an outcome-based government. Meaning we look at what, it's not about just having outputs,
An outcome-based government, meaning?
Well, as opposed to opportunity.
Outcome-based government meaning we need to set our goals right. We are talking about how many numbers of our professionals in which area, in which sectors, what kind of skills that is needed in our industries.
But can government determine that? I mean, I think that is the nub, right? We are a capitalist economy. Yeah. We actually operate by the free market, but then we expect government to somehow change the results.
The driver of this economy is the private sector, but the government need to provide the vision. Where they themselves need to put that direction. For instance, in terms of their development planning, are you still thinking about the sunset industries, or are you moving into create infrastructure, the connectivity that actually can adapt to whatever changes that they have? So if we still have that kind of gap, then forever we will not move to the country forward. So the country provide the vision, but the driver is the private sector.
Does the private sector take the government seriously? I mean, is it actually being directed? I mean, do they say we're going to go where government thinks we should go, or they're going to go where profits go?
And also, were they consulted in the drafting of this document? You talked about consulting the other coalition parties, but were the other stakeholders consulted?
In that process, we have consulted. We have engaged with numbers of private sector, from the SMEs to the chambers of commerce to the industry player, professionals. But of course, the process is not concluded. There'll be more processes towards the 12 Malaysia plan.
Oh, it's an ongoing consultation.
It's an ongoing process. That's why this is just what has been tabled, what has been launched is a framework in terms of the strategy, in terms of the the action plan initiative programs that will come out, that will be in the draft initiative plan.
And one of the things that I thought was particularly interesting was that when you look at what kind of growth story, the growth plan was for the shared prosperity vision, you had that kind of breakdown in terms of states and the kind of focus areas of what you're going to be focusing on for each of the states. Now, how much of that was really centralized and how much of that was consultative by nature to the states? For instance, with Sabah and Sarawak, in determining that these would be the key growth areas.
For the time being, what has been the data that we have gathered is more of qualitative issues and looking at what are the involvement of the industries in each of the states. But it only provides some suggestion in terms of what of the existing focus areas. If you see from what are the key economic growth activities that we have that has been proposed in the shared prosperity and the existing mapping of the activities of the states, there is still a gap.
Is it the same or is it different?
There is still a gap.
There's a gap.
Moving from whatever that there is in the states towards the new activities, there'll be more work to be done.
I wonder about the new political realities. This is a very fragmented country. The federation has never been more fragmented. The question of whether the federal government's vision can be translated to states. We have the west coast under Pakatan, the east coast of the peninsula under PAS and UMNO. We have the territory of Sarawak and Sabah also going in their own direction with different political leadership. Is this federally led plan going to work in a very fragmented political context?
I think everyone wants to see growth. We have seen statements by state leaders. I've seen from the opposition state like Pahang, meaning welcoming the shared prosperity, because we are talking about growth and opportunities and how that the federal government can assist the development, or also the development of infrastructure, connectivity, of the opportunities from the states. I give you an example. We have all the industrial park in the countries, but because these parks are developed in silos, most of them are not really fully utilized, and there comes a time when people start having the trend that will come. For instance, there was a trend talking about halal hub. That you see all the halal hub opening up in each states. Now there's a new trend of having an aerospace hub. So can you imagine 14 aerospace hubs in the countries? That is just when we do plans in silo, then we cannot harvest or harness the best potential economic opportunities there. But if you can identify what are the strengths of each of the states, and meaning try to build up the ecosystem, the financing, the capital,
and not compete with each other.
Compete with each other. I think that will basically harness the full potential.
Okay, so optimizing that ability. Yeah. Okay, we're going to come back and continue this conversation about the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. Stay tuned to consider this.